Hello, hello. It's me, Arden Lee, and today I am joined by my awesome friend. This is Taz al-Ghul. If you have not met her yet before, I know she's all over like my Facebook posts, and she's in the Witch Haven group that I've created, and she's amazing. Tell me the topic we're going to get into today is the topic of the importance of having unconditional love in your friendships, because that will model what that looks like for your relationships. But before we start talking about that, just tell everybody a little bit about you and like why we should listen to you, because I know why, but they don't.
Okay. Hi everyone. I'm Taz. I am many things. I am a performance artist and healer, and those are my two main things that I put out into the world. And I really like to come from an empowerment and strength-based perspective, which comes from my social work background. I'm not currently practicing, but that's my part of my academic background. I also really love to use technology. I'm an IT professional, and I love to use technology in my work and in terms of like connecting people and working with people and mediating conflicts and facilitating discussions. And I really love, in terms of performance art, I'm also a singer, and I dance and do burlesque, and those are the big things.
That pretty much.
Yeah, that's a little bit about who I am.
And for me, the biggest qualifying factor of why I wanted to bring you on and make a video in the first place is you're one of my go-to people in terms of advice. Because when I need someone, when I need a perspective, when I'm like, hey, what do you think about this? Like, does this look cool or not? Taz is one of the first people that I go to, and I've always really appreciated that about you.
Thank you.
So
I would say the same for you. So,
yay.
Reciprocal relationship.
So today what we want to talk about is this idea of how important it is to have really strong friendships. And we got the idea for this video because Taz hit me up and was like, hey, what are you doing tonight? And I was like, I'm not doing anything, actually. I'm making dinner, and I just have to make a couple videos for my YouTube. I said, would you be willing to do a video with me, like to help, keep me on track with my content, and I'll make you dinner in exchange. And Taz was like, yeah, sure. But she was like, I might look like hell, and I was like, I'm probably gonna look like hell too. And we're like, we don't care, it's okay. We're gonna do a video about how like it's all right for us to like look like hell around each other. And actually, like, now that I'm looking at the phone that's in front of me, I'm like, we look fine.
Yeah.
But the point was that I wanna introduce this topic of how important it is to have those people that you can just let it all out around, who are not gonna judge you no matter how you're showing up.
Yeah, I think that's so important. I want you to tell them about the quote that you just told me.
Oh,
let's go off of that. Unless you don't want to say that yet.
No, she's awesome. So there's this lovely woman that I follow on Twitter. She's an author in the UK. I believe her first book just came out. Her name is Beth McCall, Coll, and she has this tweet that said essentially, it was the importance of have friendships that have standards that are so high for how you are treated that you become accustomed to them, and you're able to then apply them to your relationships as well. So have friendships that are so strongly rooted in unconditional love, essentially, that you start to measure anyone that you might date or get into a relationship with by the standard that your friends already hold for you in your life.
Right. And I think the reason that resonated with me so deeply is because I'm someone who so deeply values an assortment of love and types of love, and that's not really something that we get much in our society, especially in like Western, Eurocentric, kind of Americanized society. And we've talked about this a lot in the past, about how I have a lot of relationships where people are a little bit confused by them because of how I don't necessarily marry intimacy with romantic relationships, and I hold them all pretty much on even footing, like platonic relationships and romantic relationships that are of varying levels of intimacy, but like it's not like romantic relationships necessarily automatically outrank platonic relationships. And a lot of people, I think, do. I feel like people don't even think about it. They're like,
It's like ingrained in our society.
It's like just like
that's your partner, and okay, but you met them like 6 weeks ago,
right?
And you've had your friends for like 3 years,
right.
But all of a sudden your partner is like way more important,
right?
Like how does that doesn't even make sense.
Exactly.
But we do it. We totally do it.
Yeah, and so that really resonates with me because and I think we're as a society finally like kind of opening up more to this idea, to this concept that that there are other relationship modes that are significant and that are meaningful, and we can have different types of intimacy with different people, and they don't necessarily have to be better or worse or higher or lower. They're just distinct from one another. And so I tell all my friends, like, I love you and I'm also in love with you, but it's a different type of love because it's platonic love or like whatever the combination of things may be. And I hold all those people who are close to me to a similar standard. Like, to me it's more like, if you are X amount of close to me intimately, then I'm going to hold you to the corresponding amount of accountability, that we have a mutual accountability to one another. And I like to be really clear about that because I don't think it's fair to impose that either. So like, it's like negotiating, how intimate are we really? How accountable are we to one another? What feels mutually comfortable? And then that's like, you have that certain degree with like, you're like BFFs and your family and your chosen family and your close friends and your acquaintances and so on and so forth. So that's what was kind of kicking around in my noggin about that.
Yeah, and what I love about like our friendship in particular is that you're so good at helping me establish my boundaries. I'm a survivor of a lot of gaslighting. I grew up with gaslighting, and I've experienced it in relationships too. So sometimes, like, I feel like I have a lot of internal self-talk that's like, well, this shouldn't be that big of a deal. Like, it's fine. I'm just making a mountain out of a molehill or whatever. And so I go to someone like Taz, and like this is the important for me. Like, the important part of having that unconditional love-based friendship. I go to her and I'll be like, hey, does this look right to you? Like, what do you think about this? And she'll be like, that's some bullshit.
Yeah, it's like this additional gut check, because I think, so I'm also a survivor of many types of abuse and trauma, childhood and other childhood relationship, et cetera, and it's something that I think I just, I, for whatever reason, got on my path of trauma healing in a really intense way really early on in my life. And so I like had some time to come around the bend a couple times on these things. So that was like my number one thing about learning boundaries and learning like how to do a gut check and to learn how to trust my gut again, because a lot of this is like being taught that your initial gut feelings aren't valid and they don't matter, and then it's learning how to trust again that you do know what your best boundaries are, that you do know what's best for yourself, that you are the expert on your own experience, because we all are the experts on our own selves. Like, no one is more of an expert on us than we are for ourselves. And a lot of trauma recovery and abuse recovery is learning that again, to like have faith that just because these awful things have happened, that it's not our fault, and that it's not like because of a mistake we made or a judgment call that we made wrong or whatever. It's a thing that was done to us, and we can, then we have to decide what to do with that. Yeah. So, I like that.
And I think having that baseline too of being like, would we treat each other this way is really, it's like, that's what it comes down to, is it's like, okay, this is happening to me, like maybe with like someone I'm dating or whatever. And especially, with dating, it's so easy for us to create these attachments that then cause us to compromise our standards, because we're like, oh, but the sex is great, or oh, but I really want to be in a relationship or whatever, so I'm willing to, like let that slide. But then if we check in with each other and we're like, realistically, like, will we let each other get away with this bullshit, or will we say something? Like, you'd be like, Arden, if I did this to you, what, like, and I'd be like, what the fuck are you on right now? Right?
Right. It's like it's maintaining your own integrity. It's maintaining integrity with those around you. And I think it always comes back to like the communication stuff, the accountability stuff, integrity and boundaries, like all those things like together. And how do we practice those things? How do we model those things? And then we can kind of, I feel like friendships are not always necessarily safe spaces. I've certainly had abusive friendships, and I think that's also that's something that's getting more in the public eye as well, which I really appreciate, because I've had actually a number of friendships that have been quite abusive, and I feel like a lot of those I feel like so much abuse is rarely actually intentional. We have this idea, it's a kind of like the rapist in the alley. There's also like the the sociopath that some people are sociopaths for sure.
Right. And then there's just like people who are acting out of their trauma, and they don't even know that they're hurting you, or they're too in their own shit to care.
The
or
hurt
whatever.
people,
hurt people
who hurt other people. Right. Yeah. So, but I think the other side of that is that when we, as people who have experienced trauma, can find others who are in a resonant place in our healing paths, then we can also use the safer space, the safer container of the friendship, to practice boundary setting, to practice accountability and healthier intimacy practices, and then we can use that as a model for our other intimate relationships, which are probably going to be somewhat parallel, like to a certain extent.
Yeah. And I think that's really the key factor there, because if we really look at what a healthy, even romantic relationship looks like, it's like people talk about, I married my best friend, and apparently there was like either a study or a survey, and it was like, well, whatever the clickbaity headline was like, if you call your partner by this pet name, your relationship has the best chance of surviving. And it's not a pet name, it's that people who say, I married my best friend. Because apparently statistically,
okay.
if you call your partner your best friend, statistically, I mean, it has to be that. You can't just call them that, probably. But, just so you know.
Hey, honey, I have a new nickname for you. It's best friend.
Hey, best friend. But you know what? I could have seen myself, in my most codependent and destructive, having, someone who was totally abusing me come home and be like, statistically, if I call you my best friend, I would have done that. But when you get those relationships in your life that model what that is, when you can solve your friendships and make sure that you're actually in healthy friendships, which really, honestly, the only way to do that, in my opinion, is just emotional self-mastery, and realize when something is hurting you and know how to say no, and practice that. And Taz and I certainly, we've been through a lot of friends who we have not, been able to keep in our lives, because it was okay, at some point, if I keep telling you, you've got to go, but once you land on those friendships where you are hey, I can make dinner for you, let's make a video, we both look like hell, who cares, then you're in the vibration of that to begin with, and then anyone else who's in your life, it's at this point right now, for me to date someone, I would have to be able to feel like I could have the same kind of intimacy with them as I do with you. Am I gonna have someone come over where I'm gonna be like, yeah, make a video with me and I'll make you dinner, or whatever, or vice versa, where it's just oh yeah, I probably look like hell. That's a big key factor. Everyone wants to put their best foot forward when they're dating someone. But if you're dating someone and you feel I can't have you come over unless I'm super dressed up, or my house is all perfect, or whatever. So that was
a red flag.
Oh my God, that was a big red flag for me when I realized I haven't dated anyone in the last it was years. It was 5 or 6 years when I realized this, that I would have them, I would feel comfortable with them coming to, that I wouldn't clean my house before they came over.
Oh my gosh.
I was I've cleaned my house every single time before I've had anyone I was dating come over, and I realized how much I was keeping myself out of intimacy.
That sounds exhausting.
Yeah. Well, obviously, now I have time to make 10 YouTube videos a week, so now that I'm not cleaning my house whenever anyone got all my energy back. Anyway, I feel pretty complete. I feel like we addressed the subject pretty well.
I think so.
But I want to make sure they know where to find you, and especially if you are in the Los Angeles area, especially Taz is a really amazing performer, and her shows are totally worth the price of admission. So.
Oh yeah, you should go to her shows too, when they happen all around the Southern California area. So you can find me on I'm probably most active on Facebook, and you can also find me on Twitter and on Instagram at Taz al-Ghul, which is TASALGHUL. So yeah, and I'm working on my website right now.
Yay!
So yeah, because I actually recently transitioned my persona a little bit to reflect my heritage a little bit more, which is something I'm exploring, to be in integrity with myself and kind of with like where the world is at right now. So yeah, that's me.
Yay! And also, since Taz is at my house a lot, if you have any comments or questions that you'd like to ask her specifically, just leave them in the comment box below, and then I'll ask her about it when she comes over to my house next time. We'll have an excuse to do more fun videos like these.
Yay!
Thank you all for witnessing our friendship,
Yes, thank you.
and hopefully we will see you next time.
Bye.